All right, hello, ladies and gentlemen of trigonometry. This is Mr. Heron talking to you about 4-5 half angle identities. If you remember before, we talked about some addition and we talked about some doubling. So now we're going to talk about half identities. If you have your formula sheet, please have that handy because that's going to help you tremendously. So the question we're asking is, does the sine of 30 equal half the sine of 60? So the sine of 30, if you look at, consider your unit circle, remember that's going to be square root of 3 over 2, that's going to be 1/2. So the sine is going to be 1/2. So the sine of 60, though, is going to be square root of 3 over 2. So this is like saying 1/2 times square root of 3 over 2, which is square root of 3 over 4, which is not equal to 1/2. So the short answer is going to be no. That's not going to work. So sine of 30 does not equal half the sine of 60. Sine of 30 would only equal sine of 60 divided by 2. It's got to be direct on what it does. Okay, so these are the half angle formulas here, which are also going to be on your formula sheet. So you're welcome that you do not have to memorize all of those. So please be aware with this. Have your sheet over so you can kind of put this together. So cosine of pi over 2, that's going to be black, or look at this. Sine is going to be, let's take a look at what we're dealing with here. So let's start looking at some trig values. So if cosine is 5 over 13, figure out sine. So this all goes back to that same idea, cosine squared x plus sine squared x equals 1, that Pythagorean theorem identity that we've talked about several times. So 5/13 squared plus sine squared x equals 1. That's 25 over 169 equals 1. So I'm going to subtract 25 over 169. So sine squared x is going to equal 144 over 169. So the sine of x is just going to be 12 over 13 plus or minus, but it's in the first quadrant, so we know that it's going to be 12 over 13. All right, so cosine is 5 over 13, sine is 12 over 13. Plus or minus, plus. So figure out the cosine of pi over 2. So if you look back, square root 1 plus the cosine of x over 2. Okay, so plus or minus square root 1 plus 5/13 over 2. So now, once I got numbers in there, they tell you it's in the first quadrant, so you only want the positive. You don't care about the negative. So now it becomes a simplification problem just with a square root in place. So let me rewrite this as 13 out of 13 plus 5 out of 13 all over 2, which is going to give me square root of 18 over 13 over 2, which is the same thing as multiplying by 1/2. So really this is 18 over 26, or 9 over 13. So that's going to be square root of 3, or not square root of 3, square root of 9, which is 3 over square root of 13. But remember, I know way back when unit 1, you can't leave it like that, so you've got to go square root of 13 over square root of 13. So 3 square root of 13 over 13. That's going to be your half angle right there. All right? So now, minus, does that change when you go to sine? 1 minus cosine of x all over 2. So once again, x is in the first quadrant, so I want the positive. So it's going to be 1 minus 5 over 13 over 2. So here we have to look at it a little bit differently. 1, I'm going to rewrite as 13 over 13 minus 5 over 13. So I'll just kind of keep that positive and just kind of assume it's positive and not mark it negative. So what do you end up with is 8 over 13 all over 2. So I can rewrite that as 8 over 13 times 1/2. So what I get is 8 over 26, which is going to be 4 over 13. So it becomes 2 over square root of 13, which when I rationalize it, becomes that, positive. So that's my answer. All right, so now when I look at this tangent, if you look back, remember that's going to be 1 minus, hold on, let me change colors here. 1 minus cosine of x over sine of x. All right, so the cosine of x is 5 over 13, sine of x is 12 over 13. That's going to be my answer. So I'm going to go 1 minus 5 over 13 over 12 over 13. So when you do that, you put that together. 1 is rewritten as 13 over 13, 8 over 13, 12 over 13. So multiply top and bottom by 13 over 12. That goes away, cancel, cancel. You're left with 8 over 12, which just simplifies to 2/3. Okay, so all you're doing is kind of putting in the sine and the cosine of that, and then doing a lot of simplification from there. All right, so if you look at sine is negative square root of 2 square root of 6 over 5. X is in the third quadrant, so remember third quadrant, everything is negative down here. So my answer is going to be negative. So if I go cosine squared x plus sine squared x equals 1, cosine squared x plus negative 2 square root of 6 over 5 squared equals 1. So it's going to be cosine squared x plus, let's see, that's going to be 25 on the bottom. Negative 2 squared is going to be 4. Square root of 6 squared is going to be 6. So it's going to be 6 times 4, or just 24. So 1 minus 24 over 25 equals 1 over 25. So the cosine squared equals 1 over 25. So cosine is just going to be 1/5. Except it's in the third quadrant, so it's got to be negative 1/5. So I've got negative 2 square root of 6 over 5, and then negative 1/5. So you've got this. Cosine is going to be, we already figured out, it's going to be negative 1/5. So that is cosine of x plus x over 2. So that's going to be plus or minus 1 plus cosine of x all over 2. Now, we are in the third quadrant, so that means I want the negative version. So I've got 1 plus negative 1/5 over 2. Okay, so what's that become? That becomes, sorry, it's negative. Negative, this becomes 4/5 over 2, which becomes negative 4/5 times 1/2, which is going to give me negative square root of 2/5. With the, once you do a little bit of simplifying, square root of 5, square root of 5, you get square root of 10 over 5 negative. All right, so where do I end up? That's going to be at negative square root of 10 over 5. Now, if you remember, that's going to be in quadrant 2, okay? So here's kind of how it works. If my original angle is in quadrant 1, then the half angle is in quadrant 1. If it's in quadrant 2, half of that's going to be in quadrant 1. If you're in quadrant 3, half of it's going to be in 2. And if you're in the 4th quadrant, that's also going to be in quadrant 2. All right? So your half angles are either going to be in 1 or 2, depending on where your original is. So if it's 1 or 2, it goes to 1. 3 or 4, it goes to 2. All right, so here, sine of x over 2. Remember, your cosine of x is negative 1/5. So cosine plus or minus 1 minus cosine of x over 2. Substitute that in. Realize I want the negative 1 minus negative 1/5 all over 2. So that what does that become? That becomes 6 over 5 over 2. So it kind of becomes 1/2, multiplying by 1/2, which gives me negative square root of 3 over 5. So if I split that, multiply top and bottom, rationalize here, I'm going to get square root of 15 over 5. All right, so square root of 15 over 5. I was originally in quadrant 3, so now I'm going to be in quadrant 2. That's going to be where my answer is. All right. So now let's look at this. Sine of 22.5, you have to realize that that is going to be half of 45. All right, so sine of 45 over 2 is equal to 1 minus the cosine of 45 over 2, where you realize that if it's 45, it's in the first quadrant, so that's going to be positive. So 1 minus cosine of 45, that's 1 minus square root of 2 over 2 all over 2. This is where things get a little bit tricky, but you got to be careful. That's 2 over 2 minus square root of 2 over 2 all over 2. A lot of 2's going on there. That's going to be equal to 2 minus square root of 2 over 2 times 1/2. So that becomes square root of 2 minus square root of 2 over 4. Then when I split it, square root of 4 just becomes 2. There's my final answer. All right, this takes a little bit of practice. I freely admit that. So you have to kind of be very, very strong with your algebra skills here. So last piece here, kind of tangent. What am I looking at? So tangent, it's a tangent of not 22.5, but think about it as 45 divided by 2. So it's 1 minus cosine of 45 over sine of 45. So that's 1 minus square root of 2 over 2 all over square root of 2 over 2. So if I put that together, it's 2 over 2 minus that over that. So now, times 2 over square root of 2. So that cancels. You're left with 2 minus square root of 2 over square root of 2. Multiply both the top and bottom by square root of 2, and look what happens. On the top, I get 2 square root of 2 minus 2 all over 2. All right, I just kind of distribute that back. Then I go factor. That cancels out. I'm left with square root of 2 minus 1. Okay, that's what I'm trying to figure out here. All right, so that's what the tangent of 22.5 is going to be. Okay, that's what you're looking at. Your half angle identities worksheet should be in Schoology. I look forward to talking to you guys this week for the Google Meets.